Hey, it's Dr. Scott. I'm here to introduce week 3 of our Children's Lit adventure. This time we go flying through the air to Neverland and paddling down the river of childhood in The Wind in the Willows to the great British classics of the turn of the century, early in the 20th century, before the onset of World War I, this sort of lost age of innocence in the minds of many historians. Now, the critical lens that we're going to use this time is one that remains controversial. Actually, they all do. But this one in particular, biographical criticism, which just boils down to using facts about the author's life to talk about the books. You'd think that would be perfectly simple. I thought so too when I was your age. But actually, especially for grad students of my generation, we were carefully taught never to do that. And it was my generation of scholars who decided that what my professors sniffed at as the pathetic fallacy, that's literally what they called it, the pathetic fallacy, as in pathos, as in attributing the emotions of the author to the characters, or the life of the author to the life of the characters, that was never to be done. And I think these two books in particular are brilliant examples of how the author's life can shed light on the work of art, and how the work of art can shed light on the authors. In both cases, we're dealing with men who were both quirky and tragic, both of them kind of loners, both of them quite odd in their own way, seen as such by their friends. Both, on the other hand, suffered horrible tragedies, deaths, suicides within their own lifetimes. And it seems to me, as a literary critic, that there's almost no way that one can't talk about this. Now, once again, warning. Again, I have to admit that many critics have found very creepy, dark, druggy, and sexual kinds of pedophilia stuff perhaps implied in these authors' lives and in their works. And I would like to double emphasize, this is not my reading. These are just the readings that are out there, and I'm your guide to literary theory, so I have to present them to you. So don't blame me. Note, for example, that almost all of the articles I've been assigning to you under the guise of literary theory are actually pieces of journalism from major newspapers and magazines and websites in some cases that are aimed at a general audience, where the journalist is simply summarizing what intelligent readers tend to know about these works and what intelligent readers tend to know about how critics have attempted to unlock their secrets. And that includes some of this creepy, dark stuff that I don't want you to blame on me. I'm not really very creepy or very dark, actually. However, I am your guide to literary theory. So, let's find out, now that we've invented childhood and exported it overseas to Treasure Island and India last week, let's find out what happens when we take the idea of childhood flying off to Neverland, or paddling down the river of the lost childhood of these two tragic, fascinating, amazing authors. Once again, watch out for the Disneyfication syndrome. I think as Americans we have to be careful of this. I've noticed this a bit in reading your essays and journals and discussions, so I'll admit, watch out. I grew up this way too. If all you've seen is the Disney stuff, you always get the sugar-coated thing. And sugar-coating is okay. I like my sweets too. Again, don't blame me. I'm all up for chocolate bars and sugar plum fairies. But when you read the actual literature, the books themselves, if you don't see satire, humor, darkness swirling around in there, then I really think that you haven't opened up the books yet. I think all you've done is look at the Disney versions. And the whole goal of this course is to move us past the Disney versions, not so we can hate on them or decide that they're horrible, necessarily, but simply so that we can understand our own place in this culture. Now, last point, speaking of our place in this culture, I do have some friends that I think resemble Toad of Toad Hall, the great literary character and caricature of Wind in the Willows. And I also gave you a bonus reading about what was named in 1983 the Peter Pan syndrome. This was when I was in grad school again. And I must admit that several of my closest friends, not me, seem to fit the mold of this Peter Pan syndrome entirely. So that's one more thing for you to have a look at. Welcome to week 3. Always so delightful to see what you all have to say. I'm reading like 96 journals and discussions and everything per day. So I get quite a slice of life, and I hope that you'll keep slicing at me, telling me what you think, how you perceive the world, and listening to me hit the ball back once in a while when I say things slightly differently.